Another Reddit thread. I know, what do we like? We like to go to these Reddit threads, but this one I do like because I come in with in my view, a very open perspective on which fans are the best fans. So we're going to focus on the Premier League now. As I mentioned there, I'm a Celtic fan, born and raised Celtic fan, and I have a very biased opinion in which I say that Celtic fans are the best fans in the world. They travel everywhere with their fans, especially when they play in European competitions. The atmosphere at Celtic Park has been stated to be the best from the likes of Lionel Messi, Ronaldinho, you name it, they've said it. So we want to have this discussion. We've brought in Adrian Horton, who is all the way in Australia. So he's up early this morning at 8:30. So he's the managing editor of Outside90.com. We talked a little bit off camera about this, but I want to get right into the discussion, Adrian. So you've got certain views on what type of fans you think there is allocated to certain teams in the Premier League. So to state out the obvious, many people who have perspective believe that Manchester United fans are never actually from Manchester. This is just taking outside sources. Chelsea fans are bandwagoners who just came into fandom once they actually acquired money. Same with Manchester City. Arsenal fans are overly critical and never actually admit that they're bad. So there's plenty out there. So let's dive straight into it, mate. How did you break up the Premier League fans and let's get into the discussion?
Well, I've done it on a number of different criteria. So I've looked at the fact that some crowds are diluted by the excessive ticket prices that we now have, which are well documented. And then you've got to look at factors like some of these out-of-town fans who are coming in and seeking the match day experience, so to speak. So they're probably not ingrained in the club as much. They probably don't understand the songs as much and things like that. So from my point of view, I actually believe that with the top 6, 7 clubs, so to speak, in the Premier League, it's actually affecting the home crowd atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And as such, when you're reviewing these fans, it's really difficult to say that they are the best fans in the country when the atmosphere is lacking. So I think from my point of view, I generally and tend to do, I like to split it up into the away support and the home support as such. So, and who am I to... Some people may say, who's this Australian bozo from down under and what does he know? But look, to be completely honest with you, I've had a really firm handle on this for quite some time. I love to go on the forums. I love to see the reaction on Twitter from the fans about some of the crowds. And you can generally just sense it and feel it when you're watching it. And, I have experienced it firsthand. I've been to a number of different stadiums. But from my point of view, I think the top 6, 7 clubs at home, I don't want to put them in a bracket of being the best fans. I tend to look at your more traditional clubs that haven't been affected by some of the commercialism that's come into the game in the last few years. So my best fans generally are your Aston Villas, Newcastle United, Stoke City, West Ham, because I feel like these clubs still are very authentic. I'd love to say my beloved Liverpool, who, obviously share a common bond with your Celtic through You'll Never Walk Alone.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, I can't put these clubs in those categories anymore because until these ticket prices come down, the atmosphere is going to lack at these big home games.
Yeah, and I agree on that. And to give a little disclaimer before people go on the comment section, I do understand that Celtic don't have the best fans in the world as much anymore because since Rangers have been basically disregarded in Scottish football from the Premier Division, Celtic fans don't turn up to games as much. So I want to get on to a couple of your points. You made a couple of great points there. I've been to numerous games as well, looking at the fans that are associated to these big teams. Manchester United fans will be open in saying that they have one of the broadest audiences that watch their games. Not everyone from Manchester supports Manchester United in the same way as a lot of people from London will support Man United. A lot of, I would say, neutral fans in England will support Man United because they attract different backgrounds. It's not a bad thing, but you talk about the culture there. It's not like they're all brought up in Manchester where they live and breathe red or blue. Manchester City fans, I would say over half of them have came in since they've started to become successful. And that's me stating that boldly, knowing that people will be like, no, I'm Liam Gallagher. I've supported Manchester City since day one. They just came into this wealth. That's true. There is some of those, but it's no surprise that you have packed stadiums at home when you're playing against these teams because people are now attracted to the football that you play, but you still don't take that many fans away from home. I go back to teams like Celtic who have looked to grasp success at any point they can, but the team is not used to success. So when they go to a UEFA Cup final, they take 40, 30, 20,000 fans just to go and watch the game, not even have ticket holders there, just to go and sit in a square where the screen's up there so they can just feel like they're part of it. That's what football is about. That's the fans that I'm talking about. And I agree. We have a guy that comes on our show called The True Geordie, and he is a big YouTuber out there. He's a Newcastle diehard, for the better or worse. He'll be open to slagging off his team, but he supports it no matter what. And that is the type of fans I think are the best fans in England, because they haven't seen the wealth, they haven't seen a turnaround in their team. They're just used to going and watching at home or away to try and support their team, and things haven't been diluted through money that's came in, meaning the ticket prices. Like Arsenal's ticket price is astounding at the moment, so fans there are obviously in uproar about that. I think Bayern Munich actually were an accomplice with Arsenal to try and protest against that, because ticket prices for stadiums like the Emirates are insane. So you do make a couple of good points there. I'm not saying that every fan who suddenly teams have came into wealth just join them through that. I think there is a lot more Chelsea fans have been there since day one, but Man City, I think, is a clear example of fans that have came on board since they've started and found success. So looking at that, when you're looking at teams like Chelsea at the moment in their dire state, Adrian, do you see watching the games, do you see a drop-off in their fans, or do you think they still stick by their team even though they're not performing as well as they had done last season?
Well, look, I'm not a massive advocate of Chelsea Football Club. I'm a Liverpool fan, and for me, I found it quite difficult to understand and comprehend how people could glory hunt, I guess, in a way, because when Roman Abramovich came in 2003, there was a significant upturn in the amount of fans that started going for Chelsea, and they were quite a fad here in Australia. There was a huge movement with Chelsea fans off the back of their success in 04, 05 and 06, 07 in the Premier League, their first crowns for almost 50 years at that club. So I don't want to beat down on them too much, but I've actually been pleasantly surprised, and I have to commend them, because although they're going through a rough trot at the moment, I think the support behind Jose Mourinho has been quite exceptional, especially at the home game against Liverpool. I thought some of the banners there and the chants, especially when they went down a goal late in that game, I thought it was very commendable to see some of these Chelsea fans acting like that. I think it would have been quite easy for them to throw the towel in, so to speak, to get on the team's case and the players' case, but they didn't. They've dug in and they're still there, and they were there in their droves again away to Stoke City. And I think on a whole, you probably have to give them the big thumbs up and say that they are committed to the club. They're certainly showing that they do truly care about this club. So to say there's been a little bit of a drop-off, I think it's actually been the opposite. I think in the face of adversity and all of the flack that they've been copping and all of the banter and the relegation parties that have been on social media and things like that, I think they've actually coped with it quite well. I'd have to say that on a whole, the Chelsea fans are sticking by their club at the moment, and it's great to see. And it's better than some of the scenes that I've seen with some of the other clubs. Like, I don't want to bang on about it too much, but I am always very disenchanted with Premier League football when I see Jurgen Klopp coming out and having a go at some of the Liverpool fans for leaving early against Crystal Palace. There was still a good 7 or 8 minutes to go in that match, and yet the fans were leaving in their droves. The stadium was almost half empty by the end of full time, and they were still pushing on. They still could have got an equaliser, and it could have been a good result. It would have retained Jurgen Klopp's unbeaten run. And then I look at clubs like Arsenal when it hasn't gone their way, yet now they're finally competing for the title. And again, the same thing. Fans are leaving. They're getting on the tube as early as they can so they can get home and have their cup of tea or whatever it is. And I say the same thing about the Man City and Man United fans.
Oh, the Man United derby itself, I could hear a pin drop at some point in that game, and that's not just on the fans. I mean, I think it is on the style of play as well. When you've got Pellegrini at away to Manchester United, a Manchester United team that is beatable, same as Man City, bringing on De Michelis with 25 minutes to go. You're kind of like, all right, well, it's clear this game's going one way, you know what I mean? It's going to be a dead-end draw, and he's happy with that. So it does come down to managerial style and the passion that's in the club. But I do want to agree with what you're saying there. I think football fans, for me, right, I'm going to be honest, I am a football fan, you're a football fan. We have very short memories. We're idiotic at times. We want to win everything, and then when things go the wrong way, we quickly change around and get mad. I'm sure you've experienced this probably firsthand with Liverpool coming so close to a Premier League title. Everyone was singing Brendan Rodgers' praise, and then as soon as things start to go the wrong way about, everyone heaps on. I wasn't one to heap on Brendan Rodgers straight away. I think that it comes down to the board, especially when you're looking at how they sell someone like Luis Suarez and try to replace him with Ricky Lambert and Adam Lallana. That comes down to a separate issue, but I think that fans as a whole, one of the most notorious cases, I think, is Gareth Bale had an astounding first season at Real Madrid. And then you hear of his car getting attacked when he's not performing as well the next season. So it's not just English Premier League teams. Trust me, football fans worldwide do have short memories. And I think this is trying to, when it comes to singling out who's the worst football fans around, everyone's got their flaws. Everyone's got part of them that helps push their team forward. The one thing I will say about football fans, I think football fans have the ability to influence their team more so than any fan in the world. I have heard a lot of stories about the Seattle fans here in the NFL, and I've watched games and they've performed, and their atmosphere is amazing. I just think that growing up with world football, I've seen firsthand how a team like Celtic, who have no right to beat a Barcelona, can go ahead and pull off that miraculous win because it feels like the atmosphere there is so... It's just astounding how much it can influence a team. So when you do see teams that have grown a fan base based on success and based on wealth, when you see those fans kind of start to delve off because the team isn't performing so well, that's when it gets a little frustrating, when you see fans leaving early because I'm not used to seeing it. So I completely agree on that. And I think Chelsea fans do deserve a little bit of credit because they have stood by Jose Mourinho, whereas if this was Real Madrid, I think his head would be on a platter. Whereas if any other big team outside of it, not saying that those fans are the most critical, but we know that when you're a club that's that successful and you take this massive fall from grace, like no other fall from grace has been as astounding as this, I would say. It's common that the manager's head's on a platter, and that's what happens in the media. Trust me, they're first to try and go ahead and get Jose Mourinho out. But the fans, they actually give him a little bit of credit at this time. But so if you were to single out one, not just much a group of clubs, but maybe one or two teams in the Premier League to having, maybe not so much just the bandwagon side of it, but just the worst Premier League fans, is there one that you could put your finger on?
I'm going to get shot down for this, aren't I? Look, just quickly, with that point you make, though, you talk about performance over results. I've never been a big fan of it. I actually look at the game as a results man. I think most fans should, but you make a really shrewd point. Unfortunately, it's an entertainment business now. Mm-hmm. That's the way it's viewed. So people are going to vote with their feet and they're going to vote with their vocal cords. And that's the way it's become. So I just wanted to make that clear. In terms of putting my head on the chopping block right now, God. Look, I'd probably have to say Sunderland fans haven't been great of late. Yes, they turn up in the time we're derby because it is such a massive game on the English football calendar. But I think their away support in the last few years has been quite turgid, with good reason. They've been playing some horrible football. It'd be very hard to rouse up the desire to go and watch some of these games as a Sunderland fan. And also to fork out the amount of prices, the amount of money, rather, that they have to go and see these games isn't great. But to put my finger on one, I don't know, like, as a Liverpool fan, I'd love to say Chelsea, but I've just given them my vote of confidence because I think they've actually been really good fans. I don't know. We'll go with Sunderland. We might go with West Brom as well because they're notoriously fans that don't travel well. Yeah. They're kind of like your Fulham fans of when they're in the top flight. They never travelled well, and when it's not going right for them at home, and certainly under Pulis, the style of play that he implements with all of his sides, being quite defensive. I think watching some of these games at the Hawthorns, it's been a library, and they haven't been getting behind their side.
Well, I mean, you don't need to worry about putting your head in the chopping block here. I do it every single week. I'm very vocal.
Like down here in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. You're a little safer over there. But, I mean, I get this. I think 1 week I was considered an Arsenal hater because I was very critical on one of their performances. And then the next week, I never give Liverpool credit. I mean, I'm here to give my perspective on what I think, right? I think that certain teams in the Premier League have a rabid fan base that is fully on board when they're winning. Like Arsenal fans right now are singing their praises, and rightly so. I would be too if Celtic were still in the Champions League. Or I have somewhat of a more allegiance to Manchester United because I was a huge fan of Roy Keane growing up. So I have a little bit of an allegiance there, and I do like when they win. But I'm not so delusional that I won't criticise them and say that, one, they need to change up. Like, I'm not going to sit there and back up Wayne Rooney because I'm a fan. Like, he's been playing diabolically. He needs to come off. I'm not going to sit here and say that the fans aren't overly critical because they're crying out for more attacking football when they have the most clean sheets in the Premier League. Switch that around and they'll be hating the fact that they wouldn't give two shits about scoring goals. They'd be like, we need to stop conceding goals. So fans do have that both sides. If I was to choose, I think Manchester City fans are the biggest bandwagon fans. I'm open to say that. I think Chelsea fans are doing a good job, but I think they're doing a good job of backing up their fans, but they're also, when they're winning, they don't turn up in abundance. They almost got complacent, I thought, when they were winning so many of those games last season. I think Arsenal fans are the most delusional, especially when they're losing. They still think that because it's pretty football, it still counts for more so. But when you look at the lack of trophies over the Premier League, over the last few years in the Premier League, it's diabolical for their team. And I think that I'm open to say that. Many people think that I do not like Arsenal. It's not that I don't like Arsenal. I think that they've got all the potential to be a Premier League winning side, and maybe so this year they'll finally achieve that. I think that fans give Arsene Wenger too much leeway, and I think that they're quick to leave and place the blame on other things rather than their team as a whole and the board. So there's my head on chopping block. It's been chopped up into 10 or 15 different pieces, mate. So you're not alone over there. But it's been a great discussion, and make sure to check out Adrian at outside90.com. Great site over there. And we'll have him back on to talk some more. Stay tuned, another clip coming your way. And subscribe to TYT Sports.